Good afternoon everyone, and welcome back to the shed. It's a while since we've been here, isn't it? Right folks, I would like to read you a short story, and please be patient with me. I'm not the best reader in the world, but this is from my book, Graham Jenkinson, Ordo Strigoi Vii, a vampire journal. There's all the info on the back, should anybody be interested in taking a look. Right, this is a short story that I wrote whilst I was in Whitby. And this is called Nathaniel. The wind was driving fiercely over the harbour wall, was causing the sand to move in a most unusual way, causing a serpentine pattern to undulate and arch as it moved across the beach. I was staying in an old fisherman's cottage on Henrihetta Street. It is known locally as Pier Cottage. The cottage always looked as though it was shrouded in an eerie smoke, which comes from the Fortune's Kipper smoking house just across the way. Sometimes that smoke gathers around the old streetlights, and it has the appearance of an ethereal spirit dancing in the dark. There was a window in the cottage which led out onto a balcony, which overlooked Tate Hill Sands, the place where in Bram Stoker's book written in 1897 about Count Dracula, the ship Demeter ran aground during a violent storm, and there was a violent storm outside my window that night. Waves crashing like thunder into the breakwaters. Great plumes of spray were sent high into the night air. The wind was howling, making a very eerie sound, and it seemed to have a ghostly noise as it passed through the red pan-tiled roof tiles. Although I felt very comfortable in the cottage, I had a strange feeling of uneasiness because of the violence of the storm outside. I lit some candles. I threw some driftwood onto the long log fire, which spat and crackled as the flames took hold, bringing a warm but very eerie glow into the cottage, as though the flames were dancing across the walls. The icy wind which blew in from the North Sea brought a hailstorm, which tapped against the window pane. Tap, tap, tap. Lightning flashed across the bay and appeared to be quenched in that seething cauldron which was the sea. I sat down in front of the fire, just roaring away in the grate, and observed the flames. They were reflected in the polished brass of the fender around the hearth. I took some old twist tobacco from my pouch and cut a length of it off with my pocket knife, which had a whalebone handle. No doubt a relic from the days when the whaling fleet used to set out to harpoon these giant creatures and return with their catch, which they used for a variety of things. I placed the tobacco between the palms of my hand and I gently rubbed it. I packed it into my clay pipe. I put a taper into the flames of the fire, and as it lit, I put it to my pipe and began to draw on it until the tobacco was alight. I blew the smoke towards the ceiling with some satisfaction. I listened to the howling of the wind and the constant tapping of the hail on the window pane, and I felt very much at peace with my surroundings. I poured myself a large glass of whisky from an old decanter, and I sipped at it, savouring every drop, and a complete calm fell over me. such a strange in the midst of such a violent storm outside. I gazed into the fire and began to drift away while the wind continued to howl. The hail continued to tap on the window pane. My mind began to think about all those poor souls who were out at sea. I must have drifted off to sleep, as I was awoken to a more insistent sound of tapping at the window pane. I stared through my sleep-dulled eyes, and I could see what appeared to be a man stood on the balcony tapping at the glass. As my eyes regained their focus, I could see he was a very tall man, gaunt in appearance, dressed from head to foot in black, with a cloak with his collar up against the wind. Looking down to his feet, he had a pair of black shoes on, which looked to have mud on them. I observed his hands, which were very slender, with long pointed fingernails. He had sunken cheeks, which were made more noticeable because of his high cheekbones. His eyes were as black as a Whitby jet. They appeared lifeless, even on the occasion when the moonlight caught them from behind the passing cloud. There was no sparkle, just cold, dead eyes. His hair, which was shoulder length and straight, was jet black in colour, again shining in the moonlight. The blackness of his hair framed a very pale complexion. He stood there, one hand tapping at the window, the other at his side. He carried on tapping at the window and stared at me with those dark eyes. Occasionally, I was most unnerved. I knew not what he was seeing as he appeared to be looking me up and down, from the top of my head to my feet. He also looked into all the corners of the room. Tap, tap, tap on the window. Then, in a single movement, he appeared to gesture me towards the window, and I was unable to avert my eyes, felt compelled to look into those eyes, which seemed to be looking directly into my soul. I was transfixed, and I could do nothing but obey his will. I walked towards the window and I tried to avert my eyes, but he seemed to have hypnotised me. He reached out his arm and held up his hand. His finger beckoned me to open the window. I noticed, though, that the wind howled around him, yet he remained motionless. Not even a single hair on his head was moving. My hand stretched out to the catch on the window. I was powerless to do any other than what he willed. I opened the catch and slowly opened the window and felt obliged to tell him, "Please enter the room." He stepped through into the room and he seemed to glide over towards the fire, stood by the mantelpiece. He sat opposite me in the fireside chair, stared at me with those dark but strangely dead eyes. He said, "My name is Nathaniel. I have been in Whitby for what seems centuries, and I often wander the cold streets at night looking for people who are willing to invite me into their homes." He spoke again, saying, "It is such a foul evening out there, and it is so kind of you to let me share the warmth of your fire and to give me some much needed company." He said, "I would like to offer you the chance to join me on the journey of an eternity." He stood up and walked around the room. Well, I say walked, he appeared to glide wherever he went. "This journey will give you everything, but it will also cost you everything." "So, tell me, would you care to come with me?" I was not sure, and I wanted to know more about what this journey was. I asked Nathaniel to tell me more and offer me a drink of my fine malt whisky. Nathaniel said no thank you. I never drink spirits or wine. I offered him something to eat, and he said, "No, thank you, I have already eaten." The room, bathed in candlelight and the glow from the fire, was very, very cosy, and we chatted about this journey Nathaniel had spoken of. Nathaniel told me of his travels. He went around the world in times past on his visits to the opera houses of Milan, the ballet theatres of Paris, the playhouses of London. This before he decided to live in the quaint old seaport of Whitby. His story was fascinating, and one which certainly caught my imagination. This man had seen and done all and more than most people could ever dream about. I said, "Yes, I will join you on the journey, because you have excited my mind, and you could open up the world for me." Then, as if from nowhere, with those dark but dead eyes, he looked directly at me. He towered above me. I looked upon his face, which was deathly pale. His thin lips parted to reveal what looked like fangs protruding from his upper jaw. His face was emotionless. I was powerless, and I could only stare into those jet black eyes. He reached forward and placed a hand upon my shoulder, whilst the other remained at his side. The hand on my shoulder had a touch so gentle that I could scarcely feel it there at all. My heart began to race at the sight before me, so scary yet so compelling. I had never met anyone like him before. Then he stooped, and I could smell the aroma of the grave upon his skin. He sniffed at my flesh, and he breathed in deeply before moving closer to me until his cheek was touching my cheek. He was as cold as marble, like one who was dead. He then moved towards my neck. It was then I felt those fangs sink deep into my vein, followed by the sound of him drinking my life's blood. I could hear him sigh with deep satisfaction. The last thing I remember was passing into blackness. I awoke the very next evening after the sun had gone down. The night was calm, and the violent storm of the previous day had passed inland and across the North Yorkshire moors. I looked out across the bay through the twin piers of the lighthouse. They were still flashing out their warning to the ships, warning of the dangerous rocks awaiting them should they stray too close to the shore. It was just like any other evening, with one exception. I had awoken with an incredible thirst for human blood. I wanted to go out onto the cobbled roads of the town and into the dark alleyways of Whitby, with all their hiding places. As I walked down Argument Yard, I found my first victim. He was on his way home after spending a few hours at the White Horse and Griffin Inn. I dispatched him into the jaws of death. Nathaniel had gone somewhere, vanished into the night. He started me out on this journey. He left behind a vampire. And that's it, folks. I hope you enjoy that short story. If you have liked it, please hit the like button, leave a comment in the box below, hit the bell icon for any future uploads. And if you've not yet subscribed to this channel, please consider doing so. It will cost you nothing, and it may set you out on the journey of a lifetime. So as always, my brothers and sisters, I will say to you all, Namaste. Enjoy the rest of the evening, everyone. Bye for now. And just to show you again, folks, this is the book, should anybody be interested. You can buy them on Amazon, or you can get them directly from me a lot cheaper. And there's the back of it again, folks. Take it easy, everyone. Be good to each other. Bye bye.